So we are going to do some applications of this. So we have this curve that's defined by this equation, right? And so it tells us to show that the derivative is this right here. They'll do this on some of the questions. Basically, they gave you the answer. You just have to show how to get there. That way, if you can't get there, but you could still do the rest of the questions, you have a good equation to actually use. Does that make sense? But we should be able to get this, let's hope. So we're going to take the derivative of this with respect to x. So when I take the derivative of this first term, it's just going to be 4x. But remember, it's 4x dx dx, but that's 1. That's why we don't put it. Plus, when I take the derivative of this term, it's going to be 6y, then what? dy dx. Then when I take the derivative of this term, am I going to have to do anything special? Product rule. Okay. So the product rule, and the product rule has more than one term, so I'm going to open my parentheses. The derivative of the first, which would just be 4, times the second, which is y, plus the first, which would be 4x, times the derivative of y, which is dy dx, equals, what's the derivative of 36? 0. Okay? Everybody good there? So then we count. I had 2 terms that had a y in them, so I should have 2 dy dx terms when I'm done, before I start to clean up anything. So in this case, I need to actually solve for dy dx. So I'm going to distribute that negative, so I will get 4x plus 6y dy dx minus 4y minus 4x dy dx equals 0. You could have moved it while you did it, yes. And when I'm working it, maybe I would do that. Maybe I wouldn't because I don't want to mess up. He's saying, couldn't we have gone ahead and moved some stuff? But especially up here, I don't want to lose you, so I usually add those steps in. But then I'm going to leave everything that has a dy dx on the left, or I can move it to the right, either way. I usually choose to leave it on the left because I think that's the way it was burned into my brain. So I am going to have 6y dy dx minus 4x dy dx. Ooh. And then I'm going to move the 4x and the 4y over here, so that would be negative 4x plus 4y. Everybody with me? And do we all understand why it's addition and subtraction at this point? Right? So now these 2 terms have a dy dx in them. I'm going to factor out the dy dx. That leaves me with 6y minus 4x. That's equal to negative 4x plus 4y. So then I'll move over here, and I can, what do I do at this point? I divide. So I will have dy dx equals negative 4x plus 4y divided by 6y minus 4x. Now, I could factor out, now in the numerator, I could factor out a negative 4, right? But because I know what I'm trying to match, do you think I really want to factor out a negative 4? No, I want to factor out a 2. So then that means that dy dx is going to equal 2 times negative 2x plus 2y over, then I'd factor out a 2 down here also, and that would be 3y minus 4x. So then I could cancel those out. And, yeah, so then I need, what did I do? Oh, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I thought you were asking about the next step. Yes, my goodness. Factor out correctly when you factor out, boys and girls. 2x, thank you. So then those 2's out there cancel out. When I look at what I'm trying to match, the only thing I have left to do is just flip these around. I don't change signs or anything. They just change places so I can show that dy dx is equal to 2y minus 2x over 3y minus 2x. And if your work is, semi-column-like organized like this, you're probably fine because somebody could follow it. But, I mean, if you feel the need to kind of go, I was here and then I went up there, It's not, whatever works for you. Okay. Any questions at that point? I would say, honestly, I think as long as it's the same value, you're fine. But since it says show that this equals this, I personally would want to make it look exactly like that. Yeah. That's a good question, though. What else you got? I will ask about that, though, because those are the little things. That's a really good question. I really don't know the answer to that. I just know what I would do that just because I feel like I'd need to, I guess. All right, so now it says find the slope of the line tangent to the curve. It says at each point. It really means each point. Each point on the curve where x equals 6. So we find the slope from what? I know. Just said it's supposed to say point. Find the slope. Where does the slope come from? The derivative, always, right? So I'm going to find the slope from this derivative. Okay, I already found the derivative. And again, if you couldn't figure out how to make it look like that, you can use what they gave you. That's why they did it that way. Exactly. Because we have to substitute in an x and a y. They only gave me x. I need to figure out where the y is. So into the original one, because I need the actual points, because it says each point on the curve, not each point on the derivative, each point on the curve where x equals, x equals 6. So I'm going to substitute it into there. So I'm going to do 2 times 6 squared plus 3y squared minus 4 times 6 times y equals 36. Okay, so then 6 squared is 36 times 2 is 72 plus 3y squared minus 24y equals 36. Okay, so we have a quadratic, even though my 2 is kind of hidden in my y there. So in order to solve our quadratic, we need to set it equal to 0, right? And we would like our y's to be, just put this in standard form. So 3y squared minus 24y, and then I'll have 72 minus 36, which is just 36. Then we're going to have to factor. Do we have a GCF? A 3. So I can factor out a 3. That leaves me with y squared minus 8y plus 12 equals 0. Then we factor, and the factoring is fairly simple here, right? So this will be a y and a y. This is positive, so the signs are the same. This is negative, so they're both minus, to be a negative 2 and a negative 6. Negative 2 twice. Everybody with me? So that means our y's are 2 and 6. So our ordered pairs that we have are 6, 2 and 6, 6. Those are our ordered pairs. Any questions about where anything came from? Nothing in that question says go find y. You have to know that when you want the slope, you're going to use the derivative. And the derivative, you're going to have to know x and y. That's how you know to go find y. We found y. We got our points because we need x and y, and we're going to have to do it twice. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is the derivative. So dy dx evaluated at, we'll do 6, 2 first. Okay? And then we'll substitute it in. So this would be 2 times 2 minus 2 times 6 over 3 times 2 minus 2 times 6, which will give me 4 minus 12 over 6 minus 12, negative 8 over negative 6, so positive 4/3. Do y'all agree with that? Any questions about where anything came from or why I did what I did? All right, so we have another point. So dy dx evaluated at 6, 6. It's going to be 2 times 6 minus 2 times 6 over 3 times 6 minus 2 times 6. So that'll give me 12 minus 12, which does not automatically make this 0. And then this gives me 18 minus 12. So that gives me 0 over 6, and that means it is 0. If I get 0 over 0, that does not equal 0. This one does equal 0. What questions do you have? Okay. Yes. Well, because it's kind of, as long as you have this chain here, you're fine, because you're saying this is equal to this, and you don't have to rewrite it. Okay. Anything else? That would be undefined. Yes. Which would be, then that does not exist, which is like different than undefined. It's the indeterminate. Hopefully we shouldn't get that. Yeah, no. Okay, so now we're going to find the positive value of x, which means we may get a different one, at which the curve has a vertical tangent line. Show the work that leads to your answer. Okay, a vertical tangent. What is the slope of a vertical tangent, or a vertical line? Undefined. The slope is undefined, right? So that means we have to figure out where is dy dx would have to be undefined. Okay, that's what we're looking for. What would make, so this is our dy dx right here, what would make this undefined? If the bottom was 0, right? So that means that if 3y minus 2x was equal to 0, then it would be undefined. Does that make sense? All right. So then we're going to solve for y. So we're going to get 3y equals 2x. So y equals 2/3 x. Okay. Everybody with me? So we need to figure out what the x value is when this is undefined. So I solved for y so that I could substitute this in to the original one back up here, which I don't know that I can show both. So I'm plugging it back into this original one way up here. But I can't show both when I do this. So since y equals 2/3 x, we're doing substitution, right? So that means I'm going to have 2x squared plus 3 times 2/3 x squared minus 4 times minus 4x times 2/3 x equals 36. Okay. Everybody understand where everything came from there? I just substituted it in. Okay, because this is going to be undefined when this is true, and they're still all the same x and y values. All right, so let me clean this up. So this will give me 2x squared plus 3 times, well, 2/3 x squared is going to be 4/9 x squared minus 4 times 2/3 x equals 36. I could have cleaned that up already. I just didn't. And you can do these things in more than one step. I just don't want to lose you. Where's the y? We substituted this in for all the y's. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. 4x squared. Do you understand about the y? Okay. Did I mess up on anything else? All right, so then I have 2x squared plus 12/9 x squared minus 8/3 x squared equals 36. All right, so I totally messed that up. That's what I'm wondering too. What did I do? Because that's what I wrote down. Oh, because it's y squared right here. I did 3 times y squared. This is my y. The second time. This? I'm sorry. So this is 4x times y. And so x times x is x squared. You got it? Sorry, I was looking back at my notes, and on my paper, I still have this as 4/3, but I think somehow I got the right answer. That's where I was being thrown off somewhere. I thought I checked myself on this. Thank you. I thought I just messed up here on my paper, and I was like, what the heck did I do? I thought I had 4/3 here. It's because I'm writing more steps than I did on there. And probably more steps than you. I just wanted to make sure I didn't lose anybody. Then I started second guessing myself. I would like this to be in thirds, though it makes everything else easier. So I'm writing way more than we would really need to. So yes, this is 4/3 x squared. Just had that moment of panic there that I did this whole thing wrong. 8/3 x squared equals 36. Okay, so then I would like to combine these 3 terms together. All 3 of these, because they're all 3x squared. You see that? So I can combine them all, but I need this in terms of thirds, so this would be 6/3, right? So 6/3 plus 4/3 is 10/3, minus 8/3 is 2/3. X squared equals 36. Okay. So then I can multiply both sides by 3/2, so x squared equals 36 times 3/2. So I could take half of it, which is what? What's half of 36? 18, and then 18 times 3 is 54. 18 times 3, not divided by 3, times 3. So that means x is, what do we have to do every time we take a square root? Plus or minus the square root of 54, but what did this say? Positive value, so in the end, x really just equals the square root of 54. And you don't have to simplify it. Yay, it is 3 squared root of 6 if you wanted to do that. But what questions you got? Okay. But you got to do yesterday's stuff in it. All right, so now we're going to let f, x, and y be functions of t that are related to this equation anytime t equals 1. Actually, I think I want to skip this one for right now. I don't want to blow your minds on this. But we are going to do another application I have for you. I know. I know, it's all salmon because there's just like tons of papers for this same one. Okay. So this picture is the same. We've already had this. Don't freak out. It was like on day 1 we had the same picture. It's gross. Okay, so we are going to find dy dx, right? You gave it to us. Oh, actually, we had this equation, and I graphed this for you in Desmos, and I just showed you. That's what it was. Okay, so we're going to take the derivative here. So when I take the derivative, I don't have to do anything special with this. So this is just 3y squared, but I have to put dy dx. Plus, this is 2y dy dx. Minus 5 dy dx. Minus 2x equals what? 0. Okay, didn't have to do any chain rule or anything there, or product rule. So now I'm going to factor out my dy dx, and that leaves me with 3y squared plus 2y minus 5. Now, I'm not factoring a dy dx out of this, so I'm going to move it over. So basically, I just skipped the step of moving it over and did 2 things at once. So that means then that dy dx is equal to 2x over 3y squared plus 2y minus 5. We don't have to. We're just done. Okay. Maybe we could, but maybe we'll need to in the future, but if you don't have to right now, don't. Like, if you can stop, you stop. No, if you factored it and you did it correctly, it would be fine. If you factored it and messed up, even though this was right, then you would get points taken off. Okay. So yeah, leave it if you can leave it. All right, so we found dy dx. So now it says, write the equation of the tangent line. That means that's got to get something from dy dx at this point. So we need two things to find the tangent line, right? We need a point, which we have right here, and a slope, well, and a slope, which we're going to get from this, right? So let's find our slope. We're going to do dy dx evaluated at 1, -3. And then I substitute it in. So I'm going to get 2 times 1 over 3 times -3 squared plus 2 times -3 minus 5. Oh, please. So this gives me 2 over, so -3 squared is 9 times 3 is 27 minus 6 minus 5. So 27 minus 11 is 16, so this gives me 1/8. So now I have the slope, that's what I needed, and I already had the point. So y minus a -3 is y plus 3 equals 1/8 times x minus 1. Okay. So then it goes on to say, find the coordinates of the points on the curve where the line tangent to the curve is vertical. So when it's vertical, the slope, which is dy dx, has to be what? Undefined. Right? So we need to find when dy dx is undefined. So it will be undefined when the denominator is 0. Yes? So I'm going to take the denominator, 3y squared plus 2y minus 5, and set it equal to 0. So then we're going to factor it. All right, got to factor this. So I can multiply and get -15. Two numbers that multiply to get me -15 and subtract to give me 2, 3 and 5, right? So 3y squared plus 5y minus 2y minus 5 equals 0. So y times 3y plus 5 minus 1 times, ooh, what did I do wrong? Oof, oh, that should be a -3. Oh, I'm stupid. I can't add and subtract. Do you understand why this should be a 3 and not a 2? Eesh. Okay, so minus 1, and that gives me 3y plus 5 equals 0. So I get y minus 1 and 3y plus 5 equals 0. So my y values are a -1 and a -5/3. A positive, oh my God. What is wrong with me? It's this factoring I can't do. It's math jail. I'm saying, I put myself in there. Okay, I will surrender. It's a +1 and a -5/3 because I was being stupid. Okay. Now, those are the y values when we have a vertical tangent. It says, it doesn't just say find the y values, it says find the coordinates of the points. And it doesn't just say the positive one, so I got to do them both. So I need to find the x values. What would I substitute this back into? The original, yes. So the original that's up there, let's start with 1. So I would have 1, let me do a different color here. 1 cubed plus 1 squared minus 5 times 1 minus x squared equals -4. Okay? So then this is 2 and this is a -5, so that's -3. Is that right? Now I add it over here, so that'll give me -x squared equals -1. So x squared equals 1. So x is going to equal plus or minus 1. Which means that I get the point when x is 1, y is 1. When x is negative 1, y is 1. Because I have two x values for this one y value. So now I'm going to do the negative 5/3. Negative 5/3 cubed plus negative 5/3 squared minus 5 times 5/3 minus x squared equals negative 4. Negative 5/3, negative 5/3. Okay, so negative 5/3 cubed is going to be a negative 125 over 27 plus 25 over 9 plus 25 over 3, it's squared, minus x squared equals a negative 4. Okay, now I would like to clear my fraction here. I could clear my fraction by multiplying everything by 27, right? Do you understand why? Okay, and don't make this harder than it needs to be. When I multiply through by 27, right, you multiply every single thing, right? So 27 times the 125, those are just going to cancel out and you'll get negative 125. When you multiply the 27 by this, 27 divided by 9 is 3, so we just have 3 times 25, which is 75. 27 divided by 3 is 9. You have 9 quarters. How much money do you have? $2. Yeah, $2. Oh, 25 cents. Or yes, $2.25. And then minus 27x squared equals negative. So 27 times 2 is 54. Times 2 is 108. Okay, so negative 125 and 225 is 100, right? And then plus 75, that'll give me 175 minus 27x squared equals a negative 108. Everybody with me? So then I subtract 175 from both sides, so I get negative 27x squared equals, so that'll be a negative 283. Yes? Yes. Then I divide both sides by a negative 27. So those will cancel out. So x squared is equal to 283 over 27. 27 is only divisible by 3. There's a bunch of 3's in there, right? Is 283 divisible by 3? No, and we know that by looking, right? Because we can add the digits. So at this point, I can't reduce that, so x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 283 over 27. And the beauty of that is you do not have to rationalize or do anything else with it. It's just ugly. So this gives me my other 2 points at which I have, when x is a square root of 283 over 27, and you want to make sure that you can tell the whole thing's underneath there, then y is negative 5/3. And when x is a negative square root of 283 over 27, it's a negative 5/3. What questions do you have? Let's check this with our graph. It looks dumb. It looks ridiculous. Okay, especially since the first two were so pretty, right? Okay, but look up here. We have 4 points. Let's see if we think 4 points make sense. Are there 4 places where I'd have a vertical tangent? Yes, I'd have one right here and one right here. Those were our first 2 points that came out all nice, right? And then we have these right here, which are not so nice. But I would say that the square root of 283 over 27 is a little bit more than 3. You see that? Because the x value is a little bit more than 3. Okay? And your y value is like -5/3. But those are your 4 vertical tangents. Okay? You just got to keep track of all the work. What questions you got? Your brain's hurt? No, there's 2 that look. Let's finish with some that aren't quite so brain consuming, because then it'll make you feel a little bit better. Okay? And so on your assignments that you have, you can, like, there's some on here that asks you about the slope and the finding equations. You can do all that. Just don't do anything that asks about the second derivative yet. Okay? But you can work through the other ones. All right, so let's find this derivative. dy dx. And look, it says when x equals 2. Pay attention to that before you start. So I'm going to take the derivative here. So I have 2x plus, what do I have to do here? Which rule? Product rule. Okay, so I take the derivative of the first, which is 1, times the second, which is y, plus the first times the derivative of the second. And that's equal to what? 0. Okay? So I don't have to solve for dy dx right now. I can go ahead and substitute in first, which would be fine. They gave me x, but look, I need x and y in here. It's possible maybe I would just need x in the end, but I need x and y. How do I find y? Yeah, plug it into the original one here. So this is going to give me 2 squared plus 2y equals 10. So 2 squared is 4. When I subtract that over there, I'd get 2y equals 6. So y equals 3. So that's not so bad. So now I can go back over here and substitute it in. 2 times 2, because that's x, plus y, which is 3, plus 2 times dy dx equals 0. So these together give me 7, right? Can I just go ahead and subtract that over there? So I can say that 2 dy dx is equal to a -7. So dy dx is what? -7/2. I think it was too, because it's the same number. Oh, excuse me. Goodness, sneezing on the mic, I'm sure that's lovely. I know. We good? Okay. Yeah, then the next one. All right, slope of the line, tangent. So if it's the slope, I need what? Derivative. Okay, and this, I cannot solve for y, so I need to use that. I need to use the implicit differentiation, which we've been doing. All right, so that first term, I don't have to do anything special. It's just going to become 6y dy dx. The next one, nothing special. It's just going to be a -4x equals, what's the derivative of 6? 0. Don't just write the 6. I did that the first time I did this, and then I was very confused at the end, and then I realized my stupid mistake in the beginning. So this is basically just 0. I don't need to put it. But then I need to do the product rule. Okay? I'm going to put that negative out here. Well, actually, you can do this one of 2 ways. So let's look at it a different way. I don't want to confuse things, but maybe it would make more sense to you. I'm going to do -2xy, right? So I'm not really subtracting it. I'm going to use it as -2xy. So I'm going to say this -2x is the first term. So the derivative of -2x is -2, right? Times y. Plus the first term, which is just a -2x, times the derivative of the second, which is dy dx. And it kind of takes care of the signs on its own, because this really could have just been a minus right there. You can do it either way. But now that I've found that, I do not have to solve for dy dx. You can, but they asked it at a point and even gave me x and y. So you go ahead and put x and y in there and you find dy dx. I'm going to do it also, but I'm not going to talk you through it. What did I do? What did I do? Oh my gosh. My brain was doing math when I didn't want it to. Okay. No, it's too much. I know, because I kept messing up. At least I was catching myself. I think I've caught all my mistakes now. When you'll finish, I'll show you the first stupid thing I did. I know. Well, it's like a negative 4x, so I said, oh, x is 3. 3 times 4 is 12, so I put 4 times 12. I don't know. And then I got 48, and I was like, I don't think that's right. So then I realized my mistake. And then I kept trying to write 6 over here, but I'm adding that. Because I put 12 here instead of 3. Because 4 times 3 is 12, which makes no sense to put 12 there, but my brain did the math, and I didn't want it to. Okay, we good? Any questions at all? Okay. So we do have one more salmon page coming tomorrow. I know. And I'm going to give you your quizzes back tomorrow that you did last Friday, if and only if